Hello again everyone, this time I will talk about mage units. As you might be able to see, this time I will not be talking about each of the main factions, but I will actually be talking about every magic unit that you can find in the game. Starting with the dwarves actually. They have the Runesmith. While this unit does not in itself, have magic attacks, so to speak, its hammer strike is actually magical. Now, magical of course means that it will always have a 70% hit chance, making every magical attack you have access to an absolute wonderful tool to break through enemy lines. Dwarves runesmiths were kind of like human heavy soldiers, having two very strong impact attacks. The difference being, of course, that they're magical and therefore not almost guaranteed to hit, but it's very likely that they're going to hit. Having 52 in total in magical impact damage is extremely useful, especially if you're fighting against undead. And they also have the added advantage that they take half damage from all weapon attacks, and like most dwarves also slightly reduced magical damage actually. Then we will switch over to the elves. The elf has one of the best magic lines in the game, by sheer virtue of their level 1 mage unit already having access to the heal ability. Heal is an absolutely invaluable ability. If you can get it, you want to have it. Sure, this one only has healing at 4, but you take any healing that you can get. They actually have two advancement paths. One down the druid line, which focuses mostly on support by making them be able to cure status conditions, so mostly poison, and actually increase their heal to 8. As you can see from their attacks, they are really not meant to fight. They get a magical attack, but it's not overly strong and it's also pierce. If you actually want to use them to fight, you usually will use them for the ensnare ability to slow enemy units. Something the base unit, by the way, also has already access to. Slowing is an absolute broken support tool. The enemy unit will not only have its movement range halved, but also its damage. So this entire tree is just a complete support tree, and it's absolutely strong at it. It's wonderful at it. If you are more combat focused, however, you can also go down the sorceress line. That actually being the elf level 4 unit, and in contrast to say undead, who can not have all their loot units promote into ancient liches, mostly just the campaign heroes, elves can always just go down that path. They actually will keep the entangle ability, which is always nice to have, even if it's not a magical attack, but they, instead of the swans, gain fairy fire. Medium strength magical attack that hits quite often. And at the last level they will actually also gain a movement point and wings, making them wonderfully mobile. As you can see, they have a total of 50 damage. That is actually not all that much compared to, say, the human mages, which we will later see. And it's also arcane damage. Arcane damage can be a bit iffy. While it's certainly extremely strong against certain factions like undead, it also is quite weak against, say most human factions, since they all have a base arcane resistance. I also have a 6-5 impact slow attack, which almost guarantees that you will actually get the enemy unit slowed, and can actually be quite damaging as well at that. The only other thing that actually needs to be pointed out is that, in contrast to most other elf units, instead of being weak against arcane, those units actually are like humans, resistant to it. Talking about human, I almost forgot. I decided to actually also mention campaign-only units, since I'm mostly focused on the campaign anyway. One would be the Elvish Lady, which is, a complete support unit. It has only a ranged attack, which is there to slow enemy units. It cures, it heals. What more do you want? And the other, which you have access to in quite a few campaigns, is the Elvish Lord unit, which is a mixture between a fairly strong melee class and a fairly strong ranged magical class. It's not exceptional at either, but it's quite strong at both. Well then, switching to the humans. Humans actually have probably the largest variety of mages to choose from, since they have a total of 3 advancement paths. The basic mage is always a very nice unit to have, 7-3 missile ability, which, well, is magical and has fire damage. Fire damage usually being a good choice since there's not much that resists it, unless of course you're fighting Dwaki, but you barely fight them, like there's few campaigns in which you actually fight them. What is important to be mentioned with them is that they are still lawful, so at night they are hitting quite weak. But in contrast, at day, or also if buffed by leadership, they hit extremely hard for a level 1 unit. One advancement path is the White Mage, which you usually want to get as quickly as possible in most campaigns, since that is a human healer ability. You want Cure to take care of poisons, and you especially want that, well, mobile healing capacity. Well, they also happen to be quite strong at fighting the undead, since their damage type actually changes to arcane, which they, by the way, also resist a lot more than mages, well, normally do. They then level up into the Mage of Light, which becomes even more of a wonderful support unit, since they have the very rare ability Illumination, which projects an aura of light in the fields around them, which levels up the day cycle 1 more towards day. If it's night, it's treated like dusk or dawn. If it's dusk or dawn, it's treated like day, which, as you can imagine, is extremely strong. They also barely take any damage themselves from arcane attacks. The other advancement path would be the Red Mage, which, very importantly, switches its alignment to neutral, which can be quite nice to have in an army full of lawful units. They get a bit of fire resistance and just a strong ranged fire attack. Nothing special about it more, really. Their prestige upgrade path is the Silver Mage, which barely gets any stronger, just 1 hit more. But they gain 2 things. First off, extreme high defense against cold and fire. Fire being good at fighting other mages, and cold being especially good at fighting undead sorcerers. But what you want them for is the teleport ability. They can teleport from any city that you own to any other city that you own, making them extremely mobile units. The other path, though, is the Archmage going to the Great Mage, one of the humans level 4 units. Those units, honestly, don't really have much new to them. Each further advancement from the Red Mage just gives them 4 more damage on each fire hit and 10 more fire resistance. But, well, I say just, but you end up with a unit that can hit for a total of 64 magical fire damage, which will melt essentially any enemy unit that might stand in its way. A special campaign only unit is actually Great Mage, Elder Mage. That would be Delphador. Delphador the Great, Delphador the Mighty. Funnily enough, despite being pretty much the only level 5 unit you ever get to play, he is essentially just a level 4 mage, but slightly weaker. I get why they did it, but I feel it's still a bit sad to have someone like Delphador and then have him be slightly weaker than that, especially as the only level 5 unit you ever get to control. In his own campaign, for most of the parts, he's actually quite a bit stronger. Since he has the Staff of Urukar, he has a special staff, which has an attack that is equal to the level 4 mage unit, but it also gives him a pretty strong magical melee attack, and he also gets heal 4 and leadership, which in the campaign makes him absolutely broken beyond belief unit, which I feel is more fitting to someone like Delphador. While we're on campaign only units, I actually forgot something about the dwarves. A unit that I sadly also can't spawn in, that would be the Arcanista. You get them in the Hammer of Torsang campaign. It is a unit that has a magical melee attack and a ranged slow attack as well. And can also heal and cure. Really useful. If it was only that, but it also has the Inspire ability. Inspire is a honestly broken ability. It works exactly like Leadership, just that the boost begins on the same level already. So, yeah, it's Leadership, but way better. As you can imagine, that unit is really broken. Switching over to the Undead, we have the absolute, the absolute unit that is a Dark Adept. If you play the Undead, you will use a lot of them. They don't have a melee attack, but let's be honest, essentially every mage unit that has a melee attack, especially at level 1, it's not really worth having anyway. In turn, they just get the really strong chill wave, with which they can just whip through enemy units. Especially at night, they hit extremely hard for a level 1 unit. From there they go to the Dark Sorcerer, which does essentially the same as they do, but better. They gain a melee attack, but again, you will never really make use of that. Now, you have two advancement paths, the Necromancer and the Lich. Now, there are a few advantages to Necromancer. Their melee attacks, if they kill something, spawns a Plague Zombie. They actually don't have weaknesses and are a bit resistant against Arcane. And a single hit of their chill wave hits harder than that of a Lich. They also have 10 HP more. That said, the Lich is, well, simply better. It even has one movement range more. The Lich gets a draining melee attack, giving it a lot of survivability. In total, its range attacks is stronger, and it gets really nice resistances to Pierce, Cold, but, you know, gets the undead weaknesses to Impact and Arcane. Actually, thinking about it a bit more, it is actually quite nice to have a few Necromancers around as well. They actually are only in total 2 weaker than the Lich, and especially at night they can hit really strong with a singular attack, and therefore take care of units way quicker than a Lich might. So yeah, it is actually quite balanced there. It also has to be mentioned that in most Undead campaigns that you play, your characters will not actually have the knowledge of how to turn into a Lich, so you will be stuck with Necromancers for quite a while anyway. Now, Liches are a good unit, but they actually have an advancement, one that you can normally not reach, and in every Undead campaign that I know can also only reach if you with your leader units. That is the Ancient Lich, which is the strongest unit in the game, plain and simple. Their melee attack is as strong as that of a level 2 unit, just that it also gets an added drain, which is absolutely crazy for such a strong unit. And its Chill Tempest can hit for a total of 65 damage, which is huge. The only thing that can hit higher is Armageddon Wake, and it's not even close to survivable, and most certainly not a magical attack. So Lich, best unit in the game by far, no question. They're absolute monsters in the lore, and they sure as hell showcase that in the gameplay as well. Now for a few, more minor factions. First off, Dunefolk don't get access to magic, that's kind of their whole gimmick. Drakes, no magic either. We have actually a single magic monster, that is a Djinn, nothing real special about it. They simply have a strong single-hit magic attack. Now, Trolls. Trolls actually get a magic unit as well, which is... it is pretty middle, but I find it fitting that Troll magic is rather primal, not very skilled. Their advantage, despite not having the strongest fire attack, is that they actually are very survivable for a mage unit, due to the Troll's high HP pool and the regenerating ability. Roses actually also get a mage unit, which does not actually get a magical attack, but has the ability to slow, and if you have access to slow, you take it. It's wonderful to have. Then we have the Saurians, which you in the mainline actually mostly, or almost only, get to play as the Orcs. They actually get a healing unit at stage 1 as well already, which is surprisingly strong for such a minor faction, but in turn they can also level up only to stage 2 for now. In a few days a new version of Wesnoth will release, in which they get a 3rd level, but they are not overly strong either, because Saurians are mostly nimble, quick, they are not really all that hard hitting. One option is the Saurian Oracle, which makes their attacks a bit strong, as you can see. Gives them a third staff strike. Their heal stays the same. That you take it if you only have Saurians and some add-on campaigns, because you really want a bit more damage, but this unit will not survive anything. Slightly resistant against Pierce and Arcane, weak against everything else and a really low HP pool. That unit will melt in an instant. You almost always want to go for the Soothsayer, which is honestly not that much weaker than the Oracle, but gets both the Cure and the invaluable +8 healing ability. There's not really much to them. You take them in the Orc campaign, and you take mostly the Soothsayers because you really want healing. Furthermore, Orcs has access to Orcish Shamans, which is mostly campaign-only unit, though many add-ons actually expand on that. Those units are really weak level 1 units, they're there more for flavor text. Then lastly we come to the Merman faction. In itself, minor faction, but not only do they get their own campaign, but you also get to play them really often in the campaign. And the Initiate unit. As a base unit, they are pretty weak, honestly. Slight cold resistance and an 8-2 water spray, which is not even really, doesn't have cold damage or so, just impact. Useful to take care of skeletons for sure, but not really a strong attack. Going to the Priestess though, kind of the same deal as the White Mage. You want to get one as quickly as possible in most campaigns. Simply for the invaluable Cure and Heal ability. But they actually also get quite the huge damage buff, since their damage turns to Arcane, making them extremely strong anti-undead fighters. With the Diviner, actually once again mirroring the Mage of Light, by getting a slightly bit more Arcane resistance and, well, a bit more damage on their Light Beam, but mostly and most valuably getting the Illuminate ability. As you can see, those two are also the only two units in the base game that can get that ability, so always a nice thing to have. Especially because you will mostly get mermaids if you play as humans, and therefore mostly lawful people. The alternative version is the Damage Caster, which goes from the Enchantress into the Siren. The Enchantress, 14-2, about equal to the Dark Sorcerer. Nice to have such a strong hitting attack, but I would really prefer if it wasn't impact damage. Again, really good if you're fighting against undead, but otherwise not really your most desired damage type. The Siren though is quite the huge buff, since they actually get 3 shots of the water spray, and well, also making their melee attack magical, which is a nice addition, but mostly flavor text, since you never want to fight with them in melee anyway. This unit will absolutely crush anything that's weak against impact, but like I already said so often, that would be mostly skeletal units. Which, to be fair, both in their own campaign, as well as in many human campaigns, you will fight a lot of undead, so having maybe one of them is a good choice, but I would mostly recommend going for the Priestess line. And well, those were all the mage units in mainline Battle for Wesnoth. Honestly, my favorite type of unit, well, as in, I just really love magical damage. I get RNG's part of the game, but I also really love having some tools where I can tell that RNG to screw off and just go, yes, I want this unit dead and it should be dead. Well, and there's few things better at that than just taking a mage. And well, with that, I wish you a wonderful day.